The points have come out. The point changes have been revealed. The Minotaur field manual is out. So the Orks have now been given a new breath of air. The rise of the green tide has come, or has it? So here are the points. A few things that I want to give a shout out to right away that a few of these things really caught us off guard, right? So a bit of the pros, battle line getting such a huge buff. Who would have thought that GW would drop points on boys and Beast Snagga boys? I've been saying since Index Hammer that I'd love to see the Beast Snagga boys come down. It was just hard to justify because they've always been doing good. As Beast Snagga boys plus the Beast Boss combo is arguably, if not our best combo, one of our best combos that we have. So Beast Snagga boys coming down kind of blindsided us, a lot of the Orc community and people as a whole. It's awesome. Beast Snagga boys allow you to get that nice strength 6 on the battlefield, a built-in 6-up, feel no pain, putting it under 100 points. Here we go. Just running a straight-up 10-man unit of Beast Snagga boys will feel good, or maybe even a 20-man unit as we look at that. Boys coming down 5 points. I don't think that's enough for Green Tide to suddenly come back to life, but there is more to come possibly, as GW did announce that there are going to be rules that they're going to be looking at in around December, right? From what I understand. So chat, tell me if I'm wrong around that. Another good surprise was kill rigs, right? I would say this data sheet that caught me the most by surprise is we've seen like 70% of what we kind of thought we were getting. Not 70%. That's a bit of a catch, right? We've seen a good amount of units that we expected to see get decreases, and then we've seen some that really blindsided us. Kill rigs are another unit / hunter rigs are another unit that kind of caught us off guard because they were already in play, right? People would say, well, wow, they're good now, but really bring them. They were already pretty solid. They were performing a GT level performance and actually holding up in Warhorde constantly. So the fact that they've come down now, they've actually gotten to the point where they're just straight up points per wound. Great data sheet. You're getting 135 points even for a hunter rig with 16 wounds and a feel no pain. That just works, guys. That just works, especially if you're playing smaller games, league games, whatever it may be. A hunter rig can just straight up work. Like I said, Beast Snagga boys coming down alongside of it. Of course, the kill rigs are the real standout at 155 points. Not to mention points per wound coming down. Def Coptus is pretty excellent. We needed another unit that we could consider putting into Deep Strike, but something that would actually survive and not simply be overwatched by like one flamer, right? There'd be like one flamer in the unit and then a couple random sporadic shots, and your Stormboys would come out like, oh, they'd come down from ingress, get overwatched, and you're like, all right, that was a waste. I shouldn't have done that. Of course, we're going to talk about how to play better with Stormboys. Yet, that said, Def Copters are the real thing that are only give us the only other option for inherent Deep Strike that's on the data sheet, right? So we like to see it. Good amount of wounds, hold up. Definitely the slaps like a wet paper bag, right? Doesn't even have AP in combat. Hate to see that, but really like to see that they got some love. Things that we did expect to see and are happy to see, still talking about the pros, are the walkers, Gork, Death Dreads, Mork. We love to see that, as Dread Mob was something that was trying to contest with Warhorde, right? We know that Warhorde is just obviously the best way to play Orcs at the moment, or it was at least while we were down and out, because it's just an inherent, very good detachment set of rules for Orcs and stratagems. But Dread Mob was at least being interesting to Orcs. It was at least giving us some life in alternate direction, giving us some combined arms factor. So we thought hopefully GW help us with this Dread Mob thing, and they kind of did. You can even argue that a Gorkanaut is kind of like a battle wagon in some ways, right? He's running to the middle of the table at times, dumping some dudes out into the objectives for just another 105 points. You can, instead of taking a battle wagon, take a Gork. It's going to be kind of fun, right? Or even take multiple of these guys. Meganobs came down in points. We'll talk about that in a second. The Big Mech. So the Big Mech is the new stunner coming out of here the last couple weeks with Brian Sepp showing off and showing out what they can do. Let's see if some more people can make them do something in Warhorde. But speaking of Warhorde, has GW, this put more of a gap between Warhorde and Dread Mob. You know what I'm saying? As we were slowly, Dread Mob was kind of making its appearances. I would show 3 lists Dread Mob, 1 list Warhorde, stuff like that. Yet here we go. And the point changes really gives benefit and credence to Warhorde, in my opinion. Of course, Walkers, like I just said, did get the buff, but the tried and true combinations and units that were already hitting and already being put on so many lists came down in points, which we didn't see coming, right? But we do like to see other things coming down, like these commandos that came down. We love to see commandos coming down as they were a tool, utility piece. I did suspect they'd only come down about 10, 15 points because GW is going to be so cautious with them. Guys, I think they should come down too at heart. I definitely do. I understand why you might feel that way too, looking at other armies with their infiltrators and with their Constar. But remember, the fact that commandos can just straight up ignore Overwatch means that it can become a strict, nasty, hard skew against certain armies like Tau, Guard, whatever. You could just bring 3 units of commandos. If they drop down to something like 100 points, auto take them in your list, and you just hard countered most armies in the game because they can't do anything to you. And you can just walk right into their face if you go first. It's a very weird place to be. So GW is, handling it very tactfully. And then another thing I just want to shout out is, of course, the war boss wording got fixed. It's now all the same and similar. It's while your wall is active, meaning that so once you disembark, it's an active rule. Therefore, your war boss will now get inactivated, and he'll go in there and start getting stuck in with his 4 punches as he should have accordingly, and as the war boss should have with the 3 damage as well. So we're glad to have that back. Well, we should have never lost. So I'm not going to give you too much credit for that, GW. Today's sponsor, Baron of Dice. So Baron of Dice has great dice. They have actually enabled us to give these dice out for our paint competitions. So I greatly advise that you go out there. We have a link in the description for 5% discount. That's, of course, because nobody likes taxes. Shout out to Baron of Dice because they are actually customizing Orc dice just for us that you guys will be able to get a hold of, and they look exceptional. So shout out to Baron of Dice. Really appreciate you guys, and I really do suggest you get them. I love the actual texture these dice have. Beautiful, beautiful, beautiful. So then we have secret missions actually getting hit. Guys, I'm going to give myself a little credit here, a little tap on the head. Good boy, right? You can watch videos from as soon as Prime Nexus dropped and secret missions were announced to how they were being played. I said I did not like them. And I said it gave people too much ability to play late game catch up and not really interact with you in ways that felt really good or win games that felt really good. Of course, I was strictly, giving the orc perspective because I don't like to generalize for all of 40K, but I did strongly stand on that point and say I didn't like how secret missions were right off the bat. A lot of people were like, oh, I like this. This is really cool. And then now they're like, GW, you guys should have nailed that. Well, let's get some consistency here, guys. I know why you were excited, but we've been over this before. We hate as a community when you don't have to interact with me for all the turns to get the win. And being able to stack up points at the end of the game doesn't feel good. But is from the Orcs point of view, because that's what we care about more, is that we don't like trading all of our bodies and our as for attrition for points, as we like to talk about with Mr. Jim Jones. Shout out to Mr. Initiative, right? We were speaking about this in our chat. You trading bodies for points, secret missions felt horrible when someone could just put up 30, 40 points at the end and just be like, yeah, I got you. And you're like, what? I just played 4 or 5 hard turns getting into you, and you just sat back and just late game scored. Didn't feel great, especially with uppy downy armies with hypercrypt and gray knights and stuff. So we don't love to see that. So but all that, I will say this. It does look like we're headed in the right direction. Maybe GW is listening. Maybe, or maybe they just got lucky while swinging in the dark. Now, the cons, because I like to be consistent here, meaning I'm not going to just be a shill and say I love everything, because I don't. Therefore, a few cons I want to point out. No squig love. Hey, man, I know they need more than simply, I would say they need just 2 points. They need to be handled kind of like the Grey Knight, Dread Knights, right? Where they were just straight up adjusted per their data sheet. They started to ignore cover. They were given additional AP. Bam, bam. They did their job reliably. They provided fire support, combined arms for Grey Knights. Squig Hog boys need to just be straight up touched and be given additional AP. Maybe it's on the wall. Maybe it's on the charge or something, right? You can do something if you're too scared of it, GW. But you could. It was for certain missions that you could do more on the secret missions. By the way, certain missions you can cap beyond the just 20 points. By the way, in chat. But it didn't feel good nonetheless. So Squig's not getting any love and just needing straight up adjustment on rules, as they need more than just points coming down. But you could have just done that in the here and now, right? So that Squig Hog boys can be more useful, more viable. Even in 3-man units, they can be skirmished. You could drop the Maz down so he could be considered independently taken. You could have dropped the Beast Boss down on Squigosaur on his own down, so that the enhancement for Edwappas could be given freely. There's certain things that could have been touched on the Squigs that I think would have been not over the top, which at least make them considered, right? At least considered, or not feel so bad when you're bringing them anyways, even if they don't bring us up like on the peak scale, right? For the general 40K player scale, which is what we like to look at here when people say, well, watch out for stats. You don't need to hit the general stats. They're not that important. They are important to us because we care about the general 40K player base as well. We don't want people to be stuck and gatekeeped out of playing their faction because it's too hard and stringent to play. When something like Squigs are just really hard and stringent to play, and they're, in the combat patrol. They were in some of the battle force boxes that came out. They're what the common average baseline beginner player usually has at their disposal. The fact that they're not doing their job and they're being missold that this is your anti-tank unit means don't leave them untouched like this. In my opinion, it was kind of unnecessary. Another thing is tank busters being brought down in points. That's just kind of funny. You could have just done nothing, right? Because in reality, you need them to be 50, 60 points for us to really consider them for like a SWAT team. Maybe at 90, I can, someone will humor them, but they're just not written correctly. Luckily, we know they might get a new rule, new data sheet as a whole anyways. A few more things that I want to point out, just speculation, right? Because points just came out today, is that Def Dreads and Mega Knobs didn't come down enough, right? Def Dreads need to come down probably another 10 points. They're very easily just chopped down and shot out. They're not really doing their offensive damage reliably either, because most of their profiles are just AP -2, meaning either something's getting cover or armor of contempt, yada yada, and they're hard to deliver. Their data sheet ability doesn't necessarily even go off, and if it does, it's kind of unreliable, as a lot of people have good leadership. Therefore, it would need to be a -1, right? So there's a lot of reasons why Def Dreads could come down. It's okay though. It's not like I'm hurt or anything. It's just we would like to see that. And Killicans not being hit right alongside there. It's like, Killicans are right on the cusp, guys. I'm telling you, of being useful. They could come down a little bit, of course, like we've talked about before. But Mega Knobs coming down just 5 points, I don't think that's enough. Don't think that was enough. I've said in the video prior to this, it needed to be 10. 10 points just straight up per model needed to come down. Oh, my thing's still up. Oops, sorry guys. Let me take that down. Boop, shouting that out, chat. So it needed to come down a little bit. Mega Knobs need to come down a little bit more. And like I said, Commandos maybe need to come down a little bit more. Pain Boys staying at the current cost that they're right now is just outrageous, right? Pain Boys are just overcosted. They're still paying the price for a Green Tide running over the meta. GW didn't even touch that either. That's another reason why, yes, boys did come down, but stuff like your Storm Boys aren't really thriving. Your Pain Boys aren't really thriving here at 80 points per model. Stampas, yes, guys, Stampas did not come down. GW could humor us and make them come down like 50 points, and that would be fine, in my opinion. Yet if you go to like 600, I'm telling you guys, they're never going to do that. Don't expect that. Stampa's been about 800 points since I started, since 8th edition. They could humor us though. Shout out to GW, 750, so we get the mech for free. That'd be pretty awesome. And then just all no buggies getting hit yet, as I alluded to either, right? Because buggies weren't hit, because other things like squigs weren't given points as much as I thought they should have. It really made me think that GW might come in here and actually start adjusting rules. So that's me being hopeful. That's me being optimistic. I'm not I'm not mindlessly just going to assume that that's exactly what's going to happen. Not trying to spread rumors either. It just gives me a little bit of speculation, which is what we do around here, right? As Warhammer lovers, enthusiasts, and players, is we look at these things and we go, well, GW, Squig Hog Boys aren't where they need to be. Cultist speed is doing kind of weird and not really playable right now. Why wouldn't you hit any of those units? Well, maybe because they decided they're going to just reflect and actually change the rules instead of just going and hitting everything in points wise, right? So with all that being said, I'm gonna give this point changes right off the bat, looking at because I've been at work, so it's not like I get to dive all in all day, but I would say it's about a 6.5. I would give the rating on the points for Orks. Yes, I'm being honest, it's 6.5. I'm including the War Boss change as well. I don't give you much credit, GW, for the War Boss change, because it could have just kind of happened, right? You didn't have to make such a silly ruling and then leave it for so long. So I'm not going to give you love for that. Love the secret rule mission changes, but for just straight up points for Orks, seems like you were still pretty hesitant, but you did reinforce units that were already good. Therefore, you were like, all right, this is what you rely on. These are what working for you. Therefore, we're going to make sure you could take more of this and then fill in the rest. Yeah, you were still a little bit too cautious on some of these things. And, we'll see what is yet to remain. Therefore, I'm still optimistic. The War Boss keyword changing is huge. That way we can actually dismark from transports and punch people up. So that's really nice. Right alongside with the fact that kill rigs are going to be great. So you're going to have battle wagons, kill rigs, trucks, all on the battlefield at the same time. Therefore, we should be able to see a lot of these combined kind of units, and Orcs should be just stomping things out by doing that. If you enjoyed the clip, check out the full video here. If you'd like to see more tactics, click here.
Let's get stuck in, lads!